Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hope that you're having a great time with the hackathon from Data Natives Unlimited now that they're started. And I hope you guys already had a lot of fun finding your groups, like finding your teams, and are starting to have like a lot of like cool ideas for this hackathon and the competition. So I'm happy now to introduce to you like some design techniques or design thinking techniques that can work you on your teams, like to maybe like get to ideas and just use like agile processes also here, and maybe for you to get kind of like an understanding of what design thinking is. Like maybe just to start a little bit about myself, like I can tell that I've been working as a product manager for 5 years in Berlin in different startups and like tech companies, always working with the development team, like having to work with designers, developers, stakeholders from different departments like marketing, sales, operations, customer success management. So I would like to share with you a little bit of the things of the design thinking work that I've done and share a bit of my experience, but mainly just go through the basics of design thinking that can be simplified into like 5 steps. And it's something that you can do, for example, always on a workshop when you get together with your team or with different stakeholders. And it's something, yeah, that you can do maybe in one day, or maybe it's something that could take you a little bit more time, like always depending on how big the effort is going to be that you're going to invest into that. Also, like feel free to write any questions on the chat or on Slack. I'll be reading it together with Elena. She's gonna be sending me questions. So in this presentation, like if you have any question or you want to say anything, like don't hesitate maybe to interrupt and just write it down, and I'll make sure that I can answer also all your questions. Yeah, so I'm just gonna get started now with design thinking. So if you look up design thinking, or if you want to summarize what design thinking is, like you could say that it is a process that uses creative and analytical skills to provide solutions to a user-centered problem. So I think with this phrase, like we're really covering kind of like the essence of design thinking. So it's kind of like a process. So it's really a methodology, like, like there's different ways of coming to solutions, and design thinking is maybe one of them that can be interesting for you depending on the project you're working on. So that's why it's like a process. Process uses creativity and analytical skills. So on the one hand, it really asks you to be creative and innovative and kind of like think of things that like don't exist yet, or things that you believe like are not so feasible to make, but anyway things that, yeah, like can actually like be done, or like would make sense in a way. Then also analytical skills, like a big thing that is important is that you actually have data that validates like your hypothesis, but also like that you have data that kind of like helps you see what you're doing and understand better, yeah, like what is happening. Then it provides solutions to a user-centered problem. So it's clear like what you want to achieve with design thinking is kind of like create a lot of solutions. So you want to, yeah, like solve a problem. It's user-centered because on the design thinking methodology and philosophy, like you should always think from the perspective of the user. So that is a little bit like maybe don't think from your own perspective, maybe as the owner of the idea or as a stakeholder or as some company with yeah, that you have a business. So really try to see through the eyes of yeah, the user. And then, yeah, clearly we talk about solving problems. So yeah, like you need to know like what the problems are. So getting already to the first part, yeah, like on knowing your users, so the user research. So here really what needs to happen is that you need to empathize with your target group. And really it means like, okay, first of all, like who's the target group, who's the user, and then kind of like empathize, meaning like try to think like how they would think, how they would feel. So really it's about like first like collecting data or like doing some analysis. So for example, if you already have a live product and for example you're able to collect data from Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, or Firebase, or like different tools that help you collect data from an existing live service, so that would already like help you understand your customers better. If you're starting something completely from scratch, then it's really good, or I can advise that you do a market research, which is basically looking at, okay, like where is your product or where is your idea somewhere gonna be fitted on the market. So maybe having a look at products that are similar that can be compared to, but and also like what is your idea, like who should be using it, to try to understand like what would be the market placement. So that's something you can also like do, you know, like having a look on the internet, like just researching like what kind of like services exist, what is missing, and what do you wanna, yeah, where do you wanna position yourself. Think as a user, as I said, like that's the big part. About empathizing. So you should really think, you know, like if you were this person, how would they act? You know, like it's about understanding also their habits. Maybe like do they come from a specific cultural background? Is it maybe a specific like gender or like our age group or whatever? So really looking maybe at demographics and ways how you can, yeah, kind of like summarize or like concise who's the person or the user. Basically, when you do this, what you want to get is that you want to be able to create personas for your product, for your idea, and also like collect like different insights from that. So then I want to show obviously like practical examples, like how would this look, and after you've done the work. So normally you would be like, if it's just you or you and the design team or all the stakeholders, however you want to do it, like you would ask people maybe to come up with like a name for the persona. It really helpful also that you give it a real personality, so you could use pictures of how that person would look, you know, adding stuff really like, okay, like what's their age, where do they come from, what is important specific about them. For example, like here in the examples, like she's single, she has no children. Behaviors, as I said, like it's important to know like what are the things like this user is familiar with and how do they behave. Also needs and interests, so that's something that goes also like deeper into really understanding of like what is this user looking for, and like how, what can you offer to that user, because you know what they're looking for and you know what their needs are. Yeah. So maybe at this point, if anybody wants to add something or have questions, like you can do so. If no, I'm gonna move now to the next step. Hmm. Okay, looks all good. Cool. Right. So after you've defined some personas, so you already define like who's your user, and you already could relate to them, and you have an idea of like, okay, like this is a bit how these people are thinking, how these people are acting. Then something further. Mhm. Okay, I see that Rio has raised his hand. Hi, Rio. We're raising our hands, but you can ask something if you want to ask something. Yeah, so basically when you already have a user, like the next thing you want to do with your user is like define some pain points. So pain points help you understand what is like what are something that the user has problems with. So for example, you've discovered that for example, the example with the yoga teachers, so there's no application, maybe, you know, like for finding a flexible yoga scheduling for mothers that also, I don't know, like let you take your kids. So then you would write that. So you would say like, okay, like this user, because of her lifestyle, because she's a single mom, because whatever, like she's not able to achieve this. So it's basically things that are very concrete to the very concrete persona and that are like pain points. So you really like want to list down like yeah, like what are things that are bothering that person. And then really like next to the pain points, it's when you come with your with user needs and market opportunities. So I think really when you understand understand, hey, somebody has a like a problem, or like they don't have a solution for something, that's when actually you can come up with a market opportunity or like a business idea, because then you can be like, okay, so it means that there is maybe a potential need from that user that is not being fulfilled, and that's also like what you want to understand, and you basically really want to see like you're basically adding value to this person and providing a service that is meaningful because it's gonna solve some of their problems they're having. So something that can come out of like identifying and listing some pain points and the user needs, and maybe even, you know, like you have a very like unique market fit opportunity, then you're able to write some user stories and also define some goals. So yeah, so I'm also like also gonna show you now a practical example, but goals like are very good when we're talking about the pain points. So you really want to know like what do you want to achieve, and just keep in the back of your head that you really want to make sure that you're coming up with solutions and goals that are not they're out yet, or maybe if they're out there that you just want to make them better because you think like your idea is better than is what is out there. Yeah. So something that is used a lot, actually, not only in design thinking, but a lot inside agile teams and like product teams and development teams, is like writing user stories. And it's really good because in like very simple structure, like you can say like, who is the person that is going to be using the service, or that is in this is intended for, what do they need it, so what do they want, and also like how they can get it. So in this example, for example, you see, as an airline passenger, I want to be able to check my flight status on my mobile app so I can make my flight. So it's really clear because you really know it's like who's the person that is using it, what is the information that you want to be able to see, and what is your goal with this. So that is something that I think, as I said, like it's used a lot in teams like agile teams and development work. Also, like myself, when I'm writing tickets for the development team, or like any yeah, or like other projects, other teams, like it's something that it's really good to have because it's just like very easy to understand, and anybody that can read it can get a hint of like what this is intended for. Again, at this point, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to ask something, you have a comment, you want to say something, do it. If no, I'm just gonna keep going. Okay. So the third part of the design thinking process would be the ideation process. So once you've understood who's your user and what are their problems, and like maybe like what solutions would be fitting for these people, then it's really time for you to like come up with some crazy ideas, innovative ideas. So some things that you can do here in the process, it's first of all like having a brainstorming session. So here it's always good that you do this with your team, and that everybody is allowed to have like ideas, that everybody has a chance to speak up, that everybody's listened, that everybody yeah, like understands and like share things. So the way I would do it, I think that is the best, is like either you work with teams, so you let teams come up with like different ideas, or you let individuals come up with ideas. And something that, for example, can be very useful in brainstorming is giving people some maybe just like some key what is called stimuli. So you can, for example, give them already some information about the user, so that they are reminded of like the particularities of the user, or you can remind them of some of like the user needs you identify, or maybe some other specific stuff. So when you provide some materials that can be maybe like nouns, verbs, or adjectives that are reflecting who's the user and what is the problem that you're trying to solve, it really helps to put it out there for you. So you can just put it out there in the room, if you have a room, or like whatever you're working, and just make sure that people create ideas based on the things you've already prepared before. Mind mapping, for me, it's also very important. Like after you've let everybody present their ideas, the ideas have been discussed, and people have been giving their feedback. Like mind mapping for me, it's when you start clustering ideas. So you start seeing that, okay, it seems like people are already finding some common possible solution, or some people already identify like what would have a very big impact. So you really want to start organizing your ideas, and then maybe deciding like, okay, let's have people vote like which of these ideas do we think is the one that is most impactful. But maybe you can have another goal. Maybe it's not about being the most impactful, maybe it's being about the most sustainable, or it's about being the idea that can be implemented the quickest. So really depending on the goal that you want to go, like you want to try to prioritize the ideas on that, because obviously you're not going to be able to work on all the ideas you had. So you really need to work on how you want to, yeah, structure your ideas. And a very good way to do it is just keeping your goal in the back of your head, and maybe like what is the thing that you want to impact. And then obviously having an idea board, like if you do it in a workshop, obviously would look like, for example, you could say that the pink post-its right here were kind of like clusters you've identified. So you start putting those ideas back into the clusters, and you start coming up really with a strategy of like how this is actually now becoming alive, and how new things are popping up. And yeah, you're just able then to create like categories for the ideas that you have, and then also like decide which of these categories are the most yeah, the ones you want to keep working with. And then here obviously I suggest that you then prioritize which ideas you as a team or you as an individual see are the most valuable ones, and yeah, keep working with those ones. Right. Then coming to the fourth step of prototyping, sorry, of design thinking, it's the prototyping step. So it really means like once you've have your ideas, you've selected them, and you're confident that this is what you want to work with, really it's just about like implementing these ideas into tangible forms. So before, you know, like you had a post-it with something written on it, and now you actually want to make it look like where is it going to be. So then you need to understand like what is going, where is this product going to exist. So maybe you need to think about, is it going to be a website? So you need to think about like how is the layout of the website going to be? Is it going to be a mobile application? So you also need to imagine like how can you feed the information, or which information actually like it's needed there. So yeah. Mhm. So sorry, I'm looking if there's any questions, but I'm writing with Elena. We're still good, so I'm gonna keep presenting. Yeah, so wireframes is really about like you wanna, you want need to know like where is this gonna be placed, you know, like. And I'm talking about a lot of examples from the tech industry. So that's why I'm talking about like landing pages, or I'm talking about websites, or I'm talking about mobile applications. But you know, maybe your product is something else. So you need to also like figure out like how do you prototype. Like maybe you're making a backpack, so you also like obviously need to start thinking like, okay, like what materials am I gonna need, like how is it gonna look, like how big should it be. So it's just about like starting to make a plan, but not just building it just yet. It's just really just trying to understand which are the element pieces that you need. So that's why I think prototyping comes in handy. And you, it's really just about like playing around and like seeing then when you make something on paper, like what actually makes sense, and just like transforming these ideas into something more tangible, into something more visual. Then a storyboard can also be very helpful, like for those of you that maybe are scared of drawing, or say like, oh, I don't have any like drawing skills or design skills, but I'm good with processes, and actually I know what I want, and maybe I cannot draw it, but I can write the process that my user should do. So you can also do a storyboard is also something great that anybody just with writing and connecting things can do. So it's really about like what is the starting point, for example, of the user journey. So like maybe again, so you want to, maybe you're improving a registration process for your platform. So maybe you need to know like, okay, so first there's an invitation email that the user gets, then there is a link that opens your website, and then in this website maybe there's different options for registering, because you're offering maybe like different subscriptions, and you need to know like cater the people. So really you want to lay out the process that you're trying to achieve, and now it's really getting into like how it's going to look, but also like what the process is going to be. Because remember that you're not creating only a product that is just going to be seen once. So it needs to be a product that is going to be used, and there's needs to be like the user needs to have some sort of process with it. So like when they're new to it, like how do they discover it? When they use it, like how do they keep using it, and why do they use it? So you really want to think about like what is the user life cycle within your service or your product. So that's also why storyboarding is important. Of course, at this stage, like you don't have to know all the small details, but you want to already have an idea of like where the journey is going, and that you still at this part really, like you're making a plan for the bigger things in the future. Then yeah, so basically what you really want to understand is you want to understand the user journey. So step by step, what do the user is seeing, which information is presented to them, which actions can they do, and how is this thing looking for them. So obviously like very you've seen things like this, I believe, like really, like. So I have now a question from Rio. So I'm gonna read it out and I'll try to answer it. So, do you have any formal step-by-step form to use every single step when you want to start building the product? Um, well, when you want to build a new product, like completely new, something I can say, like, I think using these steps that I'm presenting to you, like, for sure makes sense. But something that I think is very important, if it's something very, very new, that maybe it's not a step, but for me, it's the most important thing, is something that you call kind of like a proof of concept, or kind of like you want to prototype something and show it to people and make sure that it is what you want. I would say like when I'm starting a new project, that maybe it's not a new product completely, like it's part of a add-on feature on an existing service. For sure, what is the most important thing there is to have the user research part. For example, I when I'm working now at Fridgely, like we have this marketplace that offers like a service for local stores and influencers, and we just like put them together. So for example, you already would have had some feedback, for example, from influencers telling you what things are not working for them with the product. So they're having issues like maybe yeah, saving their favorite stores. Maybe the local stores are gonna tell you like, okay, my biggest issue is that it takes a lot of time when an influencer visits and they post, or sometimes they don't post. So there, it's really the first step is also like the first step I said is like actually knowing what the user wants or what the user needs. So that's really the first one. Sometimes in companies, like you would get some decision or some feature is just coming from because like sometimes it's not about the user. For example, when Apple releases a new version of iOS, or when like there's something changes on the technical, so you need to know like, okay, I need to be prepared for changes. So I would say the first step is always about like knowing what's new and what's coming. And then I would say like it depends or what needs to be changed. Like you can use some of these things, or you can use other completely things. So I don't think there is like a step-by-step process that matches everything. But I would say like a very, very key thing is really having data, or like user data, or like information about what the user wants. So that's the key thing. And then the second thing, it's like maybe also knowing like, do you have a deadline? What resources do you have? So it's just about understanding what you can do with the given resources that you have. So it's just like planning. I also, what I suggest a lot is that you talk a lot with other people, because I believe just when you show an idea, like they're gonna have feedback and it's just gonna enrich it. So for me, I would say the steps, yeah, they always change, but something that should never be missing is having user data, research, and testing. So yeah, maybe that's my answer to the question. I hope it was clear, and I hope maybe it answered the question, or you can also tell me if there was something unclear or that you think that's okay. Okay, then here we're looking at obviously like how wireframes would look. So it's what I was saying before. So you just kind of have to have an idea of like you're building this, like which elements do they have. So obviously on a registration process or the first time the user is going to use your product, you want to give them a very nice welcome screen, and you want to show your product. So you want to put your logo, you want to give them the feeling that they're welcome here, you want to give them the feeling that they're coming to a product, like has something they've been looking for. Because like if they're already are downloading your product, they're already using it, it means like you already did good into like reaching a user that was looking for this concrete thing. So you just want to keep telling them like, look, I really really have something that you need, but really from their perspective. So they really need to feel like, hey, look, I'm really coming here and I'm finding really really what I wanted. So that's the way you want to present it, that they feel like they found you and they really getting what they want. Yeah, then obviously like what do you want to do next. So okay, they need to create an account. So obviously which information would you need for that. So you would see like there's like a create button, there's like the details that you want to collect from the user. And then yeah, maybe it's like you want them to also like provide you your payment methods. So it's like maybe they can search, and then they have some settings. So it's just about like really understanding what I said before, like what are all the steps like that the user needs to do within the product or the feature that you're making. So you start prototyping, and yeah, cool. Then the last part, basically, it's the hypothesis validation. So before you want to hand over anything to the development team, or you want to go into like making like final high-end mock-ups of design, or like you want to start sending something to be produced, like you want to make sure that you are doing the right thing, that basically your idea and your hypothesis is basically correct. So that's basically what you want to do with testing. So maybe your hypothesis was single women that want to do yoga and have kids, they need to have the option to book together a babysitter on an app and their yoga studios. So that was your hypothesis, maybe, because you said like that's a need from the user and that's something very out there. So then you would like to present your solution, like your interface, and actually have ask people. So it's really, maybe you can ask your friends, like like if you're not able to outsource to like a very big group of like user testers, you can just show it to your friends. You can ask people around, you can look around with people from your team. If you're able to do like big user testing, like I also recommend that you do it. Also, best thing is to have people that are already similar to the target audience. So obviously, if you're designing an application maybe for pregnant women and you're asking uh, men, then like maybe the user test is not going to be as relevant as if it was somebody actually that is more matching to your target audience. So basically what you do on the user testing is you prepare some set of questions, just maybe that help you validate the hypothesis, just also without trying to plant any ideas on the tester. So try to be as neutral as possible. Maybe just ask them stuff like how where would you click here for registering, or what do you think happens on this app, or who do you think this website is intended for, just to kind of like know if you're actually the idea that you think, the prototype that you did, is actually understandable for other people. So it's really about making sure like it's my prototype and my idea being understood by others, and is it being well taken by the people that I intended it to be done for. Something recommend a lot also, like at this state, is experimenting. So doing like A/B testing, which means you don't just have one solution that you show to the users you're doing the user test with, but you try to show different alternatives. And then you would see, hey, maybe having the registration at the beginning didn't work so much. It worked better when we asked for registration already, when we show to the user some value, some free trial. Just these kind of things, I can tell you, like I've seen like working in the past. So it's just very good that always have like A/B testing also when you're doing user testing. And just also when you do A/B tests, just keep in mind only to alter one variant, and don't try to mix a lot of things, because when you mix a lot of things, then obviously your results are not gonna be very concrete on what was the key thing that made the difference. So just try to change small things and try different things. um, at the end of the hypothesis validation, you will have obviously some findings. So the thing you want the most is to know, like, okay, like, were the hypotheses that I built before, like, were they met? Like, are people actually showing me that this hypothesis was correct? Or maybe it's telling me like, okay, like my hypothesis show that with this solution that I'm presenting, people are actually not understanding the goal and are knowing that. So it's fine at this stage, because at this stage you're just like, as I said, like preparing before you really invest more resources and more time into building that final, more perfect thing. Even though it's never going to be perfect, you're always going to be having cycles of reiterating and improving. But at least, like making sure that you did all the preparation you could have done to make sure that it was the best it could be. Yeah. So, and next step, so obviously depending on the results that you had, and also like it's very good that maybe you record with video. Maybe you can ask people, like GDPR and stuff, like it's okay that you record what they're doing. You don't have to record their faces, but maybe just like their hands, like where are they touching, like, or maybe just record the audio and they can tell you like what they're thinking, so you can always listen to it and like like know later, like, okay, like these were my research and what did it mean, like what did I learn from it. And then you make a strategy for next steps. Yeah. Really like user testing, how it would look. Really, you maybe want to create, you can present your prototypes to the people, you can maybe show them different ideas, maybe they're able to write with post-its. You really need to take notes there and ask the right questions. So that's basically what is happening there. And as maybe you saw, like at the end, like you start with the user, then you go into like which problems do they have, how can I solve the problem, then which ideas like are maybe good, or which ideas make sense for solving this problem, how does it look what I'm gonna make. And then at the end, very important key thing, user testing. So validating, like you want to make sure that the idea that you have in your head is understood by others. And we're back to the point what I was saying before, that it is very important to empathize in design thinking, because at the end you're not going to be the end user, you're gonna design and create something for somebody else. So you need to make sure that the person that is seeing it and is interacting with it, it's also understanding it and feeling the way you intended it. So that's what you want to achieve with this. And now that we had the very short workshop on design thinking, I wish you all very happy designing. I hope that maybe you got inspired to use some of these techniques, that maybe you got inspired to do a workshop with your team to create ideas, that maybe you already had some things prepared, like maybe you already knew your persona, you already had a problem that you were trying to solve, but that maybe you got other information that maybe can continue to help you. And now also, if there is anything you want to talk, if you want to ask me anything, you can also like write it now. Again, about myself, my name is Joel Romero Lopez. I'm product manager, UX designer, working currently at Fridgely. You can maybe ping me if you like. Very happy to be here